This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio. PHLV Radio.
On the Dot is presented by Benjamina Mia Casino. Licensed real estate professional since 2008. License number S01669991 LLC. Moving to Vegas? There's no better time than now. Where can you find a 3-bedroom home with a balcony and patio? With upgraded flooring, all appliances included. Newly painted, move-in ready. With a community park and pool for under $400,000. Not to mention that it is so convenient to shopping, schools, entertainment. And of course, what is Vegas without the Strip? So what are you waiting for? Call Benjamina today at 702-281-9063. Mia is also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. You can also visit www.benjaminamiacasino.com and view available homes anytime. Remember, the house wins when you bet on Benjamina Mia Casino. It's a lunch hour in Vegas, and we're on the dot with Dot and Mia here on PHLV Radio.
Hello, it's On the Dot. Welcome to the show, and we hope you're having a good lunch today. It's not as hot as yesterday, and not as windy as the past 2 days. So welcome. And my name is Dorothy Tom, and this is brought to you in cooperation with the University of the Philippines Alumni Association of Nevada. You can call me Miss Dot, and my partner here in fun is, here she is.
Hello, I am Mia Casino, Benjamina Casino.
Yeah,
and
we can't hear you well.
I don't have audio?
Yes, there you go.
Hello.
All right, you're so sexy voiced.
You're wearing a sexy outfit today, Dot.
What I'm saying is your bedroom voice is right here
Really?
at the studio. Yes.
Oh, maybe it's the mic. Hello,
Okay.
mic test.
Hi, Mia.
Hello, Dot. How are you?
Happy Independence Day, belatedly.
And it's Father's Day this Sunday.
All right.
Yes,
okay,
it's
okay.
a
Happy
Father's
Father's
Day
Day to everyone, every father who's listening, and everyone who's a father who's...
Happy Father's Day, Kuya
Kuya
Yo.
Yo, yes. Happy Father's Day. All righty, Mia, let's go. Let's do this.
All right, we have a special guest in the studio, and our special guest has a degree in religious studies. I've never heard of religious studies.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Well,
And
we'll ask him.
did you plan on being a priest? No. And he worked for IBM as a customer service engineer and completed a master's degree in social work. Is that right?
That's correct.
Correct. And then worked as a spiritual bereavement counselor for a hospice, and was a licensed clinical social worker, and is now on a period of more intense spiritual practice and retreat. Mr. Steve Hart.
Hello, Mr. Steve. Yay, welcome.
Welcome.
That is a very short introduction taken from a very long introduction that you gave
I summarized it.
Yes, and the title of our show today is, you created the title, Mia.
What's the title? Hang on.
Men.
Oh, you've got male for June, and then you've got male mentality.
Mia, you hand it over to Mia to make witty titles and playing with words, and we had a hard time looking for a title, right? Because we wanted to talk about gender
Sacred
and
gender.
men and sacred gender, but what is it really? So
Yes.
anyway, just mentality. And here's a man right here with us. Hi, Steve.
Hi.
Okay. So,
What's
going on?
It's interesting. Originally, I was asked to talk about toxic masculinity, and there's a saying, I come from a background of really an interest in psychology and spiritual things. And when I was in my 20s and I liked to read the dictionary, so I looked up psychology and I looked at the root of the word, and it means psyche is soul and ology is study. So the study of the soul seemed like really interesting to me. And then philosophy is the love of wisdom. And that's kind of where I committed my life at 21. I just knew what made me the happiest was sharing love and wisdom and understanding with people. It felt really fulfilling. So that's kind of my approach to stuff. And, there's that movie, what was it, The Karate Kid with Pat Morita?
Yes.
And he had this philosophy. He was a little bit of a wise man and a philosopher. And he said, don't look at the leaves, it's the roots. The roots will tell you if it's healthy. Okay. And so when I had this topic from about toxic masculinity, for me, that's kind of like the leaf. It's like a fractional thing, focusing on a leaf. And so my perspective was to really talk about patriarchy, which is much larger, and it's an aspect of culture.
Okay, but before that, Steve, what exactly is toxic masculinity?
And I had a question about the sacred gender.
So we'll put our questions right now. Maybe you can answer anytime. So my idea of toxic masculinity, I'm just getting my ideas from the word toxic, meaning poisonous. It's not a nice thing. And am I right? Toxic masculinity, a kind of masculinity which is
it like machismo?
Unhealthy?
Yeah, machismo. Yeah. It really, for me, it's something where we're out of balance. And when you talk about from the psychological point of view, because I majored in psychology before I switched to religious studies. Okay. And a famous psychologist, one of the first ones, was Freud. And he focused on what's wrong. This is wrong. But the later deep psychologists focus, what's human potential? What is a healthy human like? And I use the analogy a lot. When I worked for a bank, they taught us how to look at a counterfeit dollar. And they said, you can't know all the counterfeits. What's important is to know the real McCoy. What is a real dollar look like? And if you really know what the real dollar look like, you can spot the counterfeit. So my perspective is, well, what is a healthy human being? What is healthy identity, healthy concept of oneself? So toxic masculinity is an unhealthy identity, and it's created from culture. It's actually created from the patriarchal culture. I want to give credit to a spiritual lady who kind of explains it through what is patriarchy, and I took this class from the Sufi dance instructor, the sacred Rumi, love of the beloved, love of life, and how to embody your love and your spiritual.
What do you call that dance again?
Dervish.
You've been there.
It's called whirling.
You've been to Turkey?
Yes, but I've. It's the first time I'm hearing of the dance.
It's a whirl. Go ahead, Steve, please.
So the source of toxic masculinity, which we normally call macho, a man cutting off all the feminine tendencies and just focusing on some of the most egregious, immature, biological animal levels of our potential. So here, I'm going to read a little thing, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
This is from Banashe Sayad, who is the Sufi teacher that I'm studying under. She writes, our inherent patriarchal system that arose some 4,000 years ago is based on a severance and separation of humans from the earth, from nature, from our body, from the feminine principle. Spirit is considered superior to matter, heaven greater than the earth. soul superior to the body, as well as mind superior to the body. The masculine active doing principle, or yang, is superior to the feminine passive being principle of yin. The concept of domination, be it over nature, other people, is a violation of the principle of wholeness, a loving connection with life, of living the truth of all is one. We all carry the wounds of this severance. We are called to heal these wounds through consciously, lovingly reclaiming the sacredness of living as a body, as part of the earth, and reclaiming our interconnectedness. We as humanity are at a crossroads. Do we continue living the illusion that we have been living, a life based on domination and severance from nature and soul? Or do we enter into relationship reclaiming the interconnectedness of all life?
Oh, I love that. I love that. We talked about, last year, we talked about severance and interconnectedness. Mia, remember that?
Yes,
And
for July, I believe.
yes,
Interdependence.
the same, around the same time we talked of these things. But you mentioned in particular, that article in particular mentions the patriarchy. Our experience of the patriarchy is not that, I don't know, Mia.
In the Philippines, though, I believe so. It's very patriarchal.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, we see it. It's still,
You see
I mean,
it.
in the United States, women got the vote in the 1920s.
Right.
yes,
They were considered property.
much later.
You know,
yeah.
in the whole Western culture, women were property. They didn't have the right to vote. The romantic notion of taking a man's name was
Oh,
because you were the
yes.
man's property. It was like writing his social security number on a stereo to show you it's his. You know, so there's things. And from the psychological point of dealing with trauma, because this severance, this kind of
separation,
pathological patriarchal culture that we're all a part of, is a part of our humanity. And the way my perspective of healing is to a lot of love and respect. So it's not blaming. It's not blaming a man for being, toxic. It's looking with love and understanding, what are we actually doing? This is something that, if we look at our history, there's been a lot of pain and trauma pervasively in humanity. I listed some of the things here of wars, incest, crime, disasters, physical, emotional, verbal abuse, addiction, mental illness, loss,
That's
neglect.
a lot. Yeah.
And it's through all our families, our parents, our grandparents, very challenging, traumatic things have happened. And families tend to, because they're embarrassed and they feel broken and ashamed and disempowered. They want to, well, let's push that all down so we don't have to deal with it and just put on a bright face, suck it up program and soldier forward,
Yeah.
So everybody's been doing their best, but we're at this point now where it seems like we're at a tipping point of how do we bring ourselves back into wholeness, and how do we, in kind of a kind way, learn to love and accept ourselves and grow.
Do you think men are open to that kind of? I see well, at least in my circle, Mia, just a few guys who are readily open to healing themselves, coming out in the open, and expressing their emotions, talking about their pain. What's your experience, Mia?
I think they're more open now than before. Yeah. Compared to before, they're more open about their feelings and how they view things. So I think it's gotten better.
All right, that's good. So you said, Steve, in one of our past conversations with you, you said something about men who, because of these traumas and because of these conditionings and programmings from the past, that's why they push themselves so hard, they work themselves to death, the pressure being put on them by society and all that. So do you think that that's why men tend to be more aggressive and abusive because of this as well?
I think it's really our culture and really cultural norms. I wrote a little, I looked up a definition of cultural norms. Social and cultural norms are rules or expectations of behavior and thought based on shared beliefs within a specific group or social group. Mm-hmm. While often unspoken, norms offer social standards for appropriate or inappropriate behavior that govern what is acceptable in interactions among people. 4 types of social norms are folk ways, traditional behavior, mores, customs, norms that are acceptable, taboos, ban on something, usually against an utterance or a behavior based on a cultural sensitivity. Laws. Laws are a form of social control that outlines rules, habits, and customs a society uses to enforce conformity to its norms. Culture influences law, and law influences culture.
Okay.
So really, again, going from the leaf to the roots, we tend to think in kind of a fractional way in our little veneer of our culture and our buildings and our little, play zone of how we live. But really, we're part of the earth. We're part of the cosmos. we're part of this universe. And there's a way of looking at humanity on this planet that as much as we wear clothes and go, well, I'm not an animal, don't act like an animal. I wear clothes that show I'm not an animal. I am we are mammals. We are warm-blooded mammals. We're the dominant warm-blooded mammal, but we're actually cellular life forms of planet Earth. We're part of Earth life. And so there is this primitive quality. If you look at all the male mammals, the deer and the bears and the lions, the sea lions, the sea elephants, all these male animals are trying to have sex with women, and they're bucking horns. They're aggressive. They're as a cellular life form. They're trying to reproduce like a virus, and it's funny that we can look at our culture, but in some ways our culture is improved. In some ways, there's all kinds of wars and killing going on, and it's still very primitive. And there's a saying in psychology and personal growth, what we resist persists.
Yeah, that's true.
So because of shame, in the Bible it says when we fell out of the Garden of Eden, the first thing that reflected our losing the Garden of Eden was shame, and we tried to hide it with fig leaves. So it's kind of a psychological tendency of humanity. Anything we're ashamed of, we want to hide and show our polite social face of where we're cool.
Yes, right. That's true. That's true.
And what we're ashamed of, we're very defensive. And it takes really love and gentleness to help people get in touch with something they've culturally been they're defensive about. And that's, I think, our opportunity, that when we actually approach each other with respect and talk about it not as blame, it's like a really healthy marriage. People disagree in a marriage. The married couples that in a disagreement are rude and condescending and sarcastic, they get divorced. But the married couples that are polite and sensitive and don't press each other, they resolve their problems and they get along for a lifetime.
That's true. That's true. And one of the things that we also thought of before coming into this, there's something. You hear that?
Yeah, the ticking
There's
sound.
a vibration here. What's going on? We have entities in the room.
Sounds like popcorn.
Sounds like popcorn popping around. I don't know what this is. Yeah, it's over here. But anyway, one of the things Mia and I talked about was men don't cry. And that is a cultural, di ba, Mia? Among Filipinos, it's very rare that Filipino men acknowledge their emotions.
Not
diba?
even in the Western culture. Also, remember the song "Boys
Boys don't cry.
I was thinking of another song.
Uh-huh.
Boys do fall in love, but I was
okay.
thinking,
Oh,
Right,
here in America, I remember my dad saying, and every time I said this, 99 out of 100 guys nod their head. If I'm crying, my dad would say, "Stop your crying, or I'll give you something to cry about."
Yes.
And when you're a kid growing up, there's an age where most boys and girls stop crying.
oh wow.
When you're a little kid, anything can make you cry, hurt your feelings and make you cry. But there comes an age where even if you get a swat or something, you're just, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of crying. And that's one of the things when we talked about toxic masculinity. The reality is, because it's cultural, women have absorbed the same toxic masculinity. In the women's liberation in America, women became more like men because Carl Jung, a famous psychologist, said all men have a feminine yin side. He called it the animus, the anima. And all women have a masculine side, the animus, or the yang. And women are just as capable. If you look at lions, the female lion does all the killing and hunting, and the big, strong male lion comes along and eats what she kills and protects them. But women we all have the balance of, in fact, I have this in honor of Dot because she likes little colorful signs.
Look at
The yin-yang symbol.
The yin-yang.
Oh, do you have it there?
Thank you.
Heart?
No, I didn't bring.
That is so nice.
But I knew this
thank you
topic
so
would
much.
come up, and it's relevant to our discussion of wholeness. And this is the Chinese principle of the Tao, of the feminine and male qualities of existence. And from the wisdom of wholeness, they're interdependent. There's a dance of harmony in the middle of the white is like the yang, the energy of consciousness, light. The dark is the feminine, the earth, the ground. And in the center of each is the other. There's a complementary dance of intimacy, of the ideal lovemaking. The most beautiful, sacred marriage in love is the potential in all of us to honor our wholeness. And, if you approach a man and say, imagine having a child and a little boy, and the father picks up that little boy and holds him with tenderness and love. The father holds the little boy's hand and walks with him, and the little boy feels his father's strength and protection. Is that gay? Is that wrong? No, it's beautiful. And most of us, I grew up, in the 50s and 60s, and my dad was a prisoner of war of the Japanese. In fact, he was kept at Balabagan prison in World War II before he went to Japan. And men, he didn't share emotion. He picked me up maybe when I was a little kid, but it wasn't until I came back from Vietnam uninjured that I got my first sincere, warm adult hug from my dad. And it stands out in my memory in my whole life. It was the one time when I got off the plane and he and my mom met me, he just sincerely hugged me. And most men, we don't get that from our dads. They're brought up, they're conditioned, suck it up, be a man, don't. And it's part of our conditioning.
Right. Oh my goodness. See, it's now half past 12, and we have covered so much, but we need to take a break, Steve, and we'll talk some more about what you have there in your notes. And we take a break, we'll be back. Don't go away.
Moving to Vegas, there's no better time than now. Where can you find a 3-bedroom home with a balcony and patio, with upgraded flooring, all appliances included, newly painted, move-in ready, with a community park and pool for under $400,000? Not to mention that it is so convenient to shopping, schools, entertainment. And of course, what is Vegas without the Strip? So what are you waiting for? Call Benjamina today at 702-281-9063. Mia is also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. You can also visit www.benjaminamiacasino.com and view available homes anytime. Remember, the house wins when you bet on Benjamina Mia Casino.
Yes. Thank you, big brother, Kuya Yo. He's like a big brother. We're saying hi to Adele. Hi, Adele Ordinario. She says, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Mia, Dot, and Kuya Yo. And hi to Robert Plana, the cool DJ Rockin' Robbie in the house, Robert. And Miss Flora, hi, hello to you. And before we move back to Steve, our special guest today for Mentality, I'd like to invite Mia to talk about the songwriting contest that we are having with UPAN. Yes, please, Mia.
The University of the Philippines Alumni Association would like to invite all songwriters. We're going to have we already have a songwriting competition. It's called Himig, which is Husay Ipagmalaki, Musika'y Ipagdiwang Gawang Pinoy. So if you're a resident of Nevada and you're into writing songs, send in your entries before August 1st to PHLV, or you can send it through our website at upaanv.com.
Mm-hmm. In any format that can be received.
Yes.
Right.
Pwedeng cassette.
Can they submit a music sheet?
Yes.
They can mail that, right?
Yes.
As long as the music is not been published
or recorded.
Yes. And we have prizes for that. We don't know yet when the production, are they going to produce the songs eventually? Are we going to have a show?
It
Who
depends
knows?
on the songwriter. It's still his, so whatever he makes is going to be still his.
All right. Thanks, Mia. So we're back to Steve, and we're talking mentality, and so far so good. I've revisited through him some of these things that I heard when I was younger, Animus, Carl Jung, and all that. Steve, what else have you got up your sleeves?
Sure. And girls are told, don't be a baby. You're a big girl. Act like a big girl. It's the same kind of conditioning. I was thinking about crying, and I had one of my teachers say that there's two kinds of tears. There's bitter tears, and there's sweet tears. And sweet tears are very healthy. And again, it goes back to taboos. Where we're something other than an animal. Don't be an animal. And the reality is, this temple is a cellular animal temple.
This body, yes.
And there's something sacred. The Christ baby in the manger is a precious biological animal called a human being. And we all as children and always are precious children of God. So imagine, urinating, that's embarrassing. You have to urinate, but we do it in a private room and pretend we don't, to each other, we never urinate or we never defecate because it's an animal function and we hide it. God forbid people should see us in our animal functions. We can show each other eating in our animal functions, but when it comes out, we have to hide it.
Hide your poop.
And crying is so natural. All humans cry. A famous Catholic brother says, I cry every day. It's hygiene for my heart. Oh, okay. It's how I wash my heart. And as a man, I am still developing the capacity to not feel ashamed or awkward when I cry at home. I'm still not going to cry in public because I am aware of the cultural norms and taboos. But at home, I'm much more comfortable crying. And this morning, I was crying for joy, for gratitude of just, I had a memory of, I was taking a bath to relax before I came here to be on the air with you two ladies. And so I'm taking this bath. And I remember when I was 4 years old and my little brother was 3-year-old, we'd be in the bathtub and my mom would be giving us a bath. And I felt so loved and so connected. Yeah. And I realized I was so much gratitude for having a loving mother to take good care of us and having a brother and having that beautiful, ordinary intimacy. And I cried tears of just gratitude that, as a 70-year-old bachelor, I don't have anybody bathing me. I would like it. I'd like to go to some geisha place where I could be bathed again or get a wife that would bathe me and I'd bathe her. But there's something wonderful about loving, tender regard between us as humans. If you watch the big gorillas on the nature shows, they're all leaning up against each other. They're grooming and touching each other. In Europe, they kind of kiss each other on this cheek. And here in rugged America, no. And it's all part of our cultural heritage, and culture is very powerful. We have to respect it, otherwise we can get in trouble.
Right. So speaking of that culture, yes, Mia, do you want to say something?
Go ahead.
I have heard American friends, male friends, who are married to Filipinas, and all of them said, and still say, that they love being married to Pinays, the Filipinas, because we are tender, we touch a lot, we are malambing. Anong malambing sa English? What's that? Sweet. And I think, and they said that most of the time it's because they feel hard or tough and aggressive. It's because they lack the sense of touch, being touched and held and taken care of in a way, not in maybe just portions of mothering, kind of. Of course, we don't want to bother every man. But what do you say about that, Steve? Just maybe men just lack you talk about your dad not touching you, so maybe they lack that kind of touch.
It's, kind of, I guess the way I'd approach it is, I had mentioned with you about sacred identity.
Yes.
And gender is a common term in cultural identities, cultural, conventional, appropriate identities for someone of male sex or female sex, this gender, it's gender is different than sex. Sex is, your biological chromosomes of male or female for 90% of us, or 98%. And then there's people that biologically have mixture of chromosomes and sometimes both male and female sex organs. And there's more, but they're the exception. Most of us, are one sex or another. Whereas gender is is a social construct of appropriate and taboo behaviors and appropriate behaviors. And then gender identity is not cultural, it's just how I feel inside as an individual.
Okay. So it has nothing to do with not exactly.
They're all kind of
with
constructs.
Society.
The gender identity is more of a recent construct of a conceptual ego trying to identify what feels best with a lot of factors. Some people, if someone is a young man and his father was a monster as far as how he behaved, way on that toxic level, he might not want to be a man. He might go, man is terrible.
Okay.
I only feel safe in feminine energies, and so we'll switch internally, not because it's natural, but because it's comfortable, considering all the circumstances. So there's a lot of factors that cause gender confusion. And people are just trying to find peace. And
True.
but traditionally, there's a different level, which is the sacred identity.
Okay.
And the sacred identity is really that balance, the wisdom of the yin and the yang, that a person that's loving, Jesus talked about being as wise as serpent and as gentle as a dove. And a dove comes down like the spirit of love, of gentleness and softness. Jesus, Lazarus died. He was crying about somebody died. Here's the person that everybody looks to as a Christian, and he was crying when somebody died. So he was demonstrating this fullness that a human being, to be really healthy, has to love and accept who they are in totality.
Totality. That's a key word. Mentality. Totality mentality. Yeah, yeah.
And the ancients had a concept that we have a soul.
Okay.
That there's a subtle quantum energetic spiritual level of us that is possibly here before this physical body and after this physical body. And this soul has the fullness of love, the fullness of masculine yang power, the fullness of tenderness. So to be having a full range of human potential, to be tender, to be receptive to another person's love, to be strong, and so we find that toxicity is there in men and women. There are women that abuse their children, that beat up their husband, that kill their husband.
Yes.
Women have, like the female lion, women are just as strong potentially as any man, and men are just as vulnerable as any woman. It's just this confusion of not being honest because of our cultural traditions.
Oh, wow. Does it shed light on our confusion
definitely.
Earlier, Mia? Yeah. When I was younger, I think 13, 14 years old, I wanted to be a man. I resented being a girl, Steve, Mia. I resented being a girl because I felt men are more powerful. I felt boys had more freedom. They didn't have periods. Their bodies seemed to be more relaxed without any restrictions. They didn't have to wear jewelry. See, I grew up in the Philippines and in the barrios. I didn't grow up in the barrios, but men can pee anywhere. Boys can pee anywhere. They just stand in the corner and shoot. So I envied that. I had some kind of an envy for their bodies. They didn't have to wear lipstick. They didn't have to comb their hair or put ribbons. They didn't need to match their dresses with their shoes. There's like no restrictions for them.
You know what I envy about men? They lose weight faster.
Yeah.
They do.
They do,
It's
right?
not fair.
Yeah,
We don't have to sit down to urinate.
No. Like you just have a lot of freedom in your body as well, you know. So, but then, then I said, I'll never get pregnant. I'll never marry. So, well, you see, I married twice. I got pregnant 4 times.
Oh, there you go.
And I said,
Undeniably woman.
I wish I have boys instead of girls. I have 3 daughters and no regrets now. You know, those are my regrets when I was younger. So maybe if the gender identity, if it was apparent back then, I would have identified myself as a man. Maybe if there was such a thing as a sex change, I would have gone that way, that path of changing myself into a boy. But see, that's unheard of in the past. So what say you, Steve?
Well, for me, it's kind of tragic because we're doing the best we can in ignorance. In a lack of self-acceptance, in a lack of skillfulness and wisdom. I feel to say something about what I would call sacred gender on the macro and the micro level. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I learned part of this from a Catholic priest. Traditional in Christianity, we talk about the Trinity. Mm-hmm. And for me, there's an interesting correlation when we look at a larger reality of existence, which spiritual things, the Trinity is about the ultimate existence. In science, Einstein gave us that all objects are made of energy. E equals mc squared. All forms of matter are really magical, moving energy. And if you look at wavelengths, energy, frequencies, the most common frequency in nature are waves in the ocean. Mm-hmm. And the medium of the wave is the ocean. The wave is a motion of the ocean. Mm-hmm. But the ocean is the source of the wave. Well, radio waves, right. I used to fix radios in the Army. Mm-hmm. And radio waves are like a wave in the ocean. They have a frequency, a bandwidth. Mm-hmm. And you shape an antenna to fit the wavelength of the wave. Well, what's the ocean that radio waves and light waves are a wiggle in? And that ocean is the clear space, the clear light of reality. That space that we take for granted because we don't see anything is actually a miraculous presence in this space. And so their space is the ocean of all energy, and energy is the energy of all forms. Mm-hmm. So there's space, energy, and forms. Now let's look at the Trinity. God the Father is this conceptualist one reality similar to space. Mm-hmm. The Holy Spirit is the energy that all the heavens and creations are made of. And the Son or the children are the forms. Now, what I learned from a Catholic priest is that the Holy Spirit is feminine. It's not He, the Holy Spirit. It's Mama, the Holy Spirit. The womb of all creation is the Spirit. Mm-hmm. And in Jewish, the word for spirit is ruach. And it's like saying amiga in Spanish. There's a feminine quality to it. Mm-hmm. And this Catholic priest told me the reason we give notice to Mary, the mother of Jesus, is because she represents the female nurturing quality of the Holy Comforter of Spirit. So we have God the Father, this being beyond any form. We have God the Mother, the oceanic energy of all the heavens and earth, and then we have us children that are the forms. And so that's on the macro level. On the micro level, a doctor on a Christian radio show said all babies in the womb, all fetuses in the womb up to 6 weeks are feminine.
Oh,
They're
really?
all born female because the creative universe is female, and at 6 weeks, testosterone washes over, and the vagina knits up, so all little boys have a seam like a Ken doll, down between the anus and the sex organs where their vagina knitted up.
Okay.
And then connections are broken between the two hemispheres of the brain, and so little boys have more of a focus because they're more slightly disconnected. So my humorous joke is men are just brain damaged females.
Men are just brain.
And we're polarized. I mean, that polarization and that testosterone turns the clitoris into a penis, and we're women that are made to just send out seeds, which is why men are competing to do their job and send out seeds. And it's really it's very biological and natural. But the Holy Spirit is something we open to when we're soft, when we can be penetrated by the love of life itself.
Wow.
That we open to, like the drop in the ocean. How do you open up to the love and the Spirit and the presence of the divine unless you soften and receive the Spirit and receive the presence of God? That's a feminine quality of opening. So when men learn to pray and to contemplate in the Christian tradition, they're learning how to soften and be open.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. I love
That's
that.
That's what I actually do when I'm anxious. I pray to the Holy Spirit.
Oh, okay.
And it
softens
calms
you.
me down.
Right.
So the name for Sophia, for wisdom, again is feminine. That the wisdom of the Holy Spirit is feminine, and actually in reality women are more intuitively brilliant than men, but because men have upper body strength and we subjugate them with just our physical power, they hide the fact that they're more intelligent than us on average. And more intuitive, and they can look at us and see where our emotions coming from, but they don't disclose that they can see so much because it's a balance of power. And it's why, because women are very intelligent in a patriarchal society with the sexual revolution, they became more manlike and started working outside the home and getting male diseases of hypertension and all of these things, and just as aggressive, the heads of corporations. It's still a patriarchal world because there still are old programming. And for me, the thing is to go, well done. We've survived this long as a species. We're not perfect. I haven't met a perfect person. I'm not perfect. I don't know if anybody here has met a perfect person. We're not a perfect species, but why not? The thing I would want to say here is today we're focused on what's wrong in all of our media. If it bleeds, it leads. Show me what's wrong. Show me what's the worst anywhere on the planet. And if we only focus on what's beautiful and right, with respect, a whole different growth happens for us.
So, taking off from what you said, Steve, focus on what is right and bright. Moving forward now, how do we balance? What practices would you recommend, if any, for our men to engage in so that they can have balance in their lives? It's the wholeness.
Love is the best way to approach things, and love is gentle. Love is patient. Love is kind. So just be gently open to be curious. Be lovingly curious about, I can't cry. When have I cried? When I went and saw this one movie, made me cry more than any other movie I ever saw. It was called The Joy Luck Club. And I cried over and over watching that movie. It was about these Chinese ladies. But there's times in your life as a man where you've cried appropriately. And sometimes crying is it's like, just imagine being constipated, never going to the bathroom. Why? Of course, you're going to be grumpy and irritable if you never go to. You're going to have cramps. You're going to. We have heart cramps as men. To be tough and to be accepted.
That's exhausting.
We want to be accepted by other men. We want to be cool. We want to fit in. We're social primates. So we sense what's cool, what's appropriate, what are the taboos. We all want to fit in. But to understand with kindness that there's still a lot of primitive stupid stuff about our culture that's less than perfect, and that we can respect our culture and be grateful for where it's taken us, but it's like what presidents say, a more perfect union. We can become more balanced, more whole, and it starts with just the interest and curiosity and realizing it's life or death culturally. If you didn't fit into the tribe, you were killed or exiled. So there's this deep biological programming in the nervous system to want to fit in. So you have to approach growth with understanding and gentleness, and then you feel less threatened. And when you feel less threatened, it's easier to relax and explore something new.
What would be good words for our sons who are growing up? What would be good encouragements for our male children? Like instead of me, I told my son, hey, it's okay to cry. And if, let's say, if a doctor would pricked him for immunization, and the nurse would say, oh no, it's not gonna hurt, it will not hurt at all, don't cry, I say, it will hurt and it's okay to cry. So that's what I told my son. So he grew up feeling okay to cry, but it's been looked down upon as not as such a nice thing. What do you tell Alonzo, Mia?
When he opened up to me, I just told him that as long as you're a good person, that's all that matters.
As long as you're a good person?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you say, Steve?
To be aware here and now.
Telling our sons?
To know that you have the ability, balance is a really good perspective, that to fly you need both wings. You can't fly with just one wing, you need both. You need balance to walk. So you have strength. You have the power of life, the Holy Spirit itself to, like David and Goliath, you have an incredible vitality of life, and you have the tenderness to know love.
And we can tell our children that.
The sweetness and the joy of love, and both are precious. Strength is good, power in a beautiful, conscious, wise power, and beautiful tenderness and love and vulnerability to feel your wife's heart or your child's sadness and be sensitive is a wonderful ability. And to have the full range, like a piano keyboard, you just don't want the little high notes, you want the dark notes, you want the whole keyboard of human emotions is your heritage and your right.
So I would tell my children the same things, right? That your life is, I'm just practicing, your life is okay. You are whole and you have the totality of your experience. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be powerful. It's okay to feel your feelings. You don't need to suppress anything.
And to be skillful. I mean, when in Rome, do as the Romans, to be aware that there's a lot of people, a lot of little boys aren't aware of that. So you can have them, but you can choose when you want to cry.
Right.
When I cried as a little boy, I'd have a tantrum, I'd get mad that my dad yelled at me, and I'd go in my bedroom and I'm crying. Crying is like your diaphragm. When you're really crying, it's this automatic thing. Your body is crying. You're not crying. Your whole body is crying. And it's like when you're on a swing as a little kid. You're swinging on the swing and you keep going to go faster. When you want to slow down, you do something opposite, holding the things, and that's the way it is with crying. You can, somebody dies and you're grieving and you're crying, the phone rings, and you stop crying and you deal with what you have to. So letting people know that they can be aware and appropriate and skillful and know the safe places to cry. And know that you don't have to feel like you can never cry, that there's a time and place for everything on the earth.
I like
so
that.
Learning that freedom and that skillfulness.
I like that.
I cry when I'm mad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me too. I don't cry. I cry when I'm sad and when I'm mad.
When I'm really mad, I cry.
And I have strong masculine tendencies that I can call on or call forth when needed. And I can also be very feminine. Like today, I have off-shoulder
People cry at weddings.
Yeah.
They cry for great joy. It's so beautiful. It's so precious that they just cry, and it just touches their heart. It's just, and when your heart opens, whatever needs to happen happens.
Yes. Yeah, so look at that. It's 1 o'clock. Well, is there anything you'd like to ask Steve before we go, Mia?
No, I really like what he said about approaching men, men's, I guess, ignorance with understanding and love instead of blaming.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It would solve not really solve, but lessen divorce.
Oh, yeah. All right. That's nice, Mia. That's a nice pickup.
Love, respect.
Yes.
And understanding that I'm learning. I'm going to turn 71 in Halloween, my next birthday, and I'm still growing. I'm still imperfect. I'm still gradually becoming a little more available to my heart, a little more skillful. And it's my perspective, we grow our whole lives. So it's not like I'm 18, I'm a man now, been there, done that, and it's all over.
But it's over. Our show is over, Steve. So what would be your final words for our listeners?
I'm just grateful for this show, Dot and Mia, and the gentleman back that's producing this. And my wish is for everybody to enjoy their potential to grow and open their hearts and treat each other with respect and gentleness.
I love that. That's why it's called a gentleman.
Oh, that's nice. See?
A gentleman is gentle. All right. Thank you so much, Steve, for being with us. Thank you to all our listeners and viewers for staying on the dot. Mia, your words.
So my final quote for today is coming from E.W. Howe. Men have an exaggerated idea of their rights as women have of their wrongs.
Oh. Okay. That's balance. But let's not resist too much so that what we resist will not persist. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you.
See you next week.
Have a great week
on the
Wednesday.
dot.
Bye.
Moving to Vegas? There's no better time than now. Where can you find a 3-bedroom home with a balcony and patio? With upgraded flooring, all appliances included, newly painted, move-in ready. With a community park and pool for under $400,000. Not to mention that it is so convenient to shopping, schools, entertainment. And of course, what is Vegas without the Strip? So what are you waiting for? Call Benjamina today at 702-281-9063. Mia is also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. You can also visit www.benjaminamiacasino.com and view available homes anytime. Remember, the house wins when you bet on Benjamina Mia Casino.
Just like a friend from back home. This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.